All right, we are back. It is the Dana Barrett Show on Biz 1190. You can call us here in the studio, 404-231-1190, or you can tweet us. Follow me at Dana H. Barrett. Follow the station at Biz 1190, or you can follow our regular contributor, Leslie Kuban, at Leslie FranNet. Okay. So Leslie's with us. She comes on pretty regularly, and we've talked about a lot of different things over the months, you and I. But today we're going to focus on something that is near and dear to your heart, and that is being in business with family. So you've been in business with your dad for a long time now.
Almost 17 years.
Wow.
Yes. We're heading into our 17th year of working together as equal partners in our consulting firm.
You know, I was going to ask you later on, I had some sort of questions laid out, and I was going to ask you about success stories, but clearly that's a success story. You don't do anything for 17 years if it's not working. Right?
Yes, and I would tell you I think there's more examples of it not working out, and when it doesn't work out, it can go down in flames. So in one sense, we're fortunate. We kind of fell into it, by luck, but we have established some things along the way that has helped and enhanced that.
Yeah.
And definitely, I think there's some points of wisdom with that. And, most of our clients are family businesses.
Yeah, I was going to say that. A lot of small businesses certainly are, and a lot of people who want to get into owning a franchise do it with family members, whether it's a husband and wife, or whether it's, like in your case, father-daughter, or a couple of siblings. It's not uncommon, right?
It's, if you have a family and you own a business, you have a family business.
Well, that's true for sure.
Whether or not your spouse or kids ever step foot into that business.
Yeah.
The dynamics are there, but it's at least half of our clients are husband and wife teams looking to get into a business together. One spouse may be kind of the leader, but the other spouse is going to give that helping hand here or there. And just the trending up of multi-generational business owners where baby boomer aged parents and their 20-something child really struggling with a limping competitive job market is driving more families into business together.
I haven't done the research, so I'm just going to make some stuff up right now. But it seems to me that back in the day, whenever that was, it was all family business, right? I mean, when we were farming communities and when people owned the corner store, everybody was in business with family. That's just how it was done.
And it was passed from generation to generation, the blacksmith, the baker.
Right, and even the big companies, as they began to grow in the industrial age and all of that, it was still very family-oriented. You put your family name on the business, Ford, and it stayed in the family, right? I mean, that was kind of how it was done. And then I think, again, I have not done my homework on this, but I think there was a trend probably starting in the, 70s, 80s time frame, where it became more about the individual. It came more about me, and I'm going to go off on my own, and I don't want to do what my dad did, and I'm going to go to Wall Street or wherever and make my name, right? Not that some of that wasn't happening all along, and maybe that trend did start sooner. If somebody wants to call in and correct me, I'm totally down with that. But I think, now, because of what we're seeing both in the economy and also just in this whole idea of doing things more locally, more mom and pops, I think it is probably becoming a little bit more acceptable again to be in business with family.
And desirable.
Yes, and desirable.
Yes, as people, there's a thirst, there's a hunger for creating community roots that just the way employment, business, corporate life has been for so many people, it rips them away from their extended family, they have to relocate, and there's a real yearning for, I want to be in my neighborhood, know my neighbors, do business with my neighbors, and family small business is the best vehicle for that for a lot of people.
Yeah, to that point I have to say I did own a small business with family, actually, my bookstore in Roswell, for 5 years, and I loved that aspect of it, sort of getting to know my neighbors and getting to know the community. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of that happening, and I think people are really enjoying that. But what would you say are some of the biggest challenges in working with family?
Well, can I address that with some tips?
Sure.
I think that there's challenges, but there's also great ways to avoid some of those challenges.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of people that are thinking, I'd like to start a business with my spouse or with my adult child or with a brother. And if one is in the stages of thinking about that, one of the first things to do is to get very clear on who's going to be involved in this and what are each of our strengths. It's ideal when, if it's husband-wife, if it's brother-sister, parent-child, you're coming to the table with complementary strengths.
Yeah.
If you have the same strengths, then the likelihood of you stepping on each other's toes in the business is a lot higher. I mean, that's and then you go out shopping for what business to go into based on finding a business where there is a defined place in that type of business for your individual strengths. I just helped a client earlier this year where it was a husband and wife team, and they came to me saying, our goal is for us to go into business together. So we only want to look at businesses where it could clearly work if it uses my strengths and my wife's strengths.
Interesting.
And the wife, and I helped them acquire an existing up and running elder care franchise, which was a perfect fit for their mutual skills. The wife had a sales and marketing background, so she's going to be the one out in the community building relationships, bringing in the customers, and the husband had a management and operations background, so he's the one back in the office working with staff, working with scheduling, working with the back of the house side of things. So that was a great opportunity or excellent example of choosing a business where going into it that each of you is going to have a role.
Yeah.
That's important, is defining separate roles so that you're not getting each other's business, and then you trust each other to be successful and make decisions in those roles.
Okay, so that's sort of tip number one: define the roles and be clear that you pick a business that has those roles for each of you.
Yes.
And did you and your dad do that, or did you get lucky?
Oh gosh, we didn't know what we were doing when we get started, and it definitely caused some real tension.
Yeah.
I mean, love my dad, but you get these family dynamics in there, and he was. I mean, it took me a couple years and some screaming matches around. Do not schedule my time without telling me.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
my time is not your time.
Yeah.
Wow. Don't schedule. I mean, I have other things that I'm scheduling. So there's these dynamics that come into play, which is why I think in all businesses, but especially in family businesses, it would be advisable to schedule or organize an outside kind of board of advisors.
Okay.
That could be a CPA, it could be a financial advisor, it could be a lawyer, it could be, it could be customers, it could be vendors. I mean, it could be a lot of people. Someone who's not in the family, though, and maybe even consider giving some of those people voting rights.
Interesting.
Because you may come down to, partnerships are sticky anyway. You add family dynamics into business partnerships, and logic can go out the window.
I think that's a really interesting, a tip. So I think that, as you said, I think probably good for most businesses. We've talked about this before, to have, whether it's formal or informal, a board of advisors. And depending on the relationships, you may need it to be more formal, right? But also, we're not getting into this per se because we're talking a lot about two people in business together, which makes it hard. Because if you're 50-50 and you don't agree, who gets to win? Then does it fall back on those family dynamics? So if it's Leslie and her dad, does he say, well, I'm the dad and I win? If it's 50-50. Or if it's your brother and sister, does the older sibling win automatically?
All of those dynamics. That's why I think considering having somebody else with voting rights to break some of these very emotional decisions that can come up may be important for the health of the business.
Yeah.
And remember, in a lot of these family businesses, the people involved in the business are not just family. You may have other employees.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal to the health of the business. So another tip is to make sure that you're not treating family employees, in a privileged way to your other employees. It sets a terrible example.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes around advancement, when it comes around pay. If you have a son or daughter in the business, but you have other employees, they need to earn it. They need to earn advancement opportunities. If you want to set a good example and proper motivation techniques for your other employees. Yeah,
that's another really interesting potential dynamic problem, not even with you and your family member, but with you and your other employees. Yeah. I know when I had my business, my sister was in the business. She's much, much younger than me. And so we had it very clear. She was a much smaller partner. She had a much smaller stake in the business. And I was the boss. So we could get into it. I mean, we're sisters, so we could get into it. But if it came down to it, I finally sort of had the right to be like, no, we're doing it my way. I have more shares than you. We're doing it my way. Sorry. And it had to happen that way a few times. And by the way, I'm just going to say, we did not do it so well. After we closed that business, we were not getting along so well. It took a couple years for us to come back to being where we needed to be as sisters. So
money, and we've talked about this before. People get funny over money, so you bring that into the equation. It just triggers our animal caveman behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot more to talk about on this subject, so we'll kind of keep going a little bit, but right now we do have to take a quick break right here on the Dana Barrett Show. We are talking with Leslie Kuban today. She is our franchise expert with FranNet. Stay with us. We'll have more right after the break.